Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Monday, July 28th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. If you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we greatly appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. Or you can join us live. You can open up a browser window and go to zoom.us. Once you're there, join the meeting, and the meeting ID number is 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. And or you can, if you have unlimited long distance, you can call a number like the Chicago listing number they have, 312-626-6799. And then add your meeting ID of 853-2357-4173. And we appreciate it whenever anybody does that because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. If you tap into the show live, you can call with your phone and just sit and listen and or talk to us, and or if you're on your laptop or desktop, you can open the browser window and share video and talk, or just type in the chat room so that we have your input, and we can tell how well we're doing in terms of living into our intention with this work, which is to be of service. So, thoughts, comments, questions, answers, soliloquies, we're wide open. We have plenty of time. A week from Friday, on the 8th of August, we are hoping to have Christian Sundberg, the author of the book, A Walk in the Physical, join us for the actual internet show. And That will be delightful. Again, I just have to remind people, please. I've had a number of people say, "Oh, I've got this question or that question for him," and then I said, "Please email it to me." All right, so we've got a record of this with plenty of time before he's due to participate in the show, and I don't have any of those yet from people. So that's a week from Friday. Christian Sundberg will join us, and we welcome your comments and questions prior to that, so we can, well, do two things really. One of them is help Christian feel welcome and appreciated for what he's offering the world, which is not, I would say it this way, it isn't a standard offering. It isn't right in line with, John Mayer's got a song about, they tell you to stay between the lines, but there's a lot more interesting stuff if you don't stay in the lines. And
So, Dr. Tim,
yes,
I have a big question, and I have to start by describing something that my sister does a lot of, and I think I do too, but in a different way. My thought above all this is that we are constantly in dialogue with something. If we grunt or groan or swear to ourselves or whatever, even if we feel badly about something, we are in dialogue with something that is going to help us not feel that way. For instance, hang on one sec. What?
You have a password for Netflix?
I can get it later.
You have one.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. So my sister, for instance, she's had a very hard life, and we all know why that might have been the case. But when I go visit her, when she's going about her business in her apartment, I'll hear her grunt and groan and sigh. And I said to her, Joe, who are you talking to? And she said, oh, I'm just talking to myself. And I thought, no, you're making a comment out into the ozone. And in some way, you want the ozone to register what is going on with you. Are you feeling that? And she said, no, I'm just talking to myself. And maybe that's true for her. But what I think is happening with her is she's making a comment about how life is unfair, how things are hard. She doesn't deserve the way things are. She deserves help. And she's mad as hell because she's not getting what she wants, even though she's really basically had financially a free ride her whole life because she's been taken care of by family members, governmental programs, food stamps, that sort of thing. And so I was asking myself, what am I doing? Am I doing the same thing? And I am. I think every time, even
in talking to the
or
universe, you mean?
not even necessarily talking. I'm taking it to the extreme now. Last week I mentioned a few people who I'm triggered by, and I didn't want to do the wake up sheets on the radio show. I've used all kinds of tools to bore into what this is. And I think I have a codependent relationship with the world, with God and everything else. So
Go big or go home.
right. So I'm thinking, all right, so if this is the case, where do you go from here? And I thought, well, the only way to be is to be completely independent not necessarily in a bad way, not disconnected, but in fact, maybe even better connected, because I'm totally standing on my own 2 feet and not hoping that someone will change something in their behavior or what they say to me or life circumstances, to not expect anything. I know we touch upon all this all the time, and it may seem completely tiresomely familiar because the revelation I've had is mostly in my gut, and I'm trying to put words with it. We have a bilingual Episcopal service now. We have a new congregation right in our church, which is it's us, but they're completely Spanish speaking. And we've met all year, 9:00 for English speaking, 1:00 for Spanish speaking. And during the summer, the rector has decided he wants to see how we do if we do it as one parish, which means we get preachers who are bilingual, and there are lots of them around, or enough anyway so far. And he is, but he's away. And we don't add to the length of the service. We simply say, for the prayers of the people, for instance, one part of the beginning might be in English, then the second prayer is in Spanish, and back and forth. So we have 2 intercessors at the same time. And we had a young bilingual Spanish speaking, actually from Spain. So his Spanish is absolutely gorgeous. And he's been preaching. He's not ordained. He's in the process of becoming a deacon in our tradition, which I think you know about because you've been Roman Catholic. So he's up there and he said in English, but his English is so accent filled that when he switches to English, we don't even realize he's speaking in English right away. We still think he's in Spanish. So I say, Tim, listen, he's talking English. But he said, I want to do my sermon to you from my heart. And he said it with such passion. It was so sweet, but it wasn't codependent at all. It was like, this guy is right out there, but he's okay out there. That's the ticket right there, to be out there, but be absolutely okay with it. Then he gives this beautiful sermon that the gist of it is basically what you've been reading about in the Way of Mastery and Course in Miracles. You are loved from before you were born to after you die. I'm paraphrasing. You've been loved for all eternity and always will. Whatever you do is not dependent on whether you
Your salvation is not dependent
yeah.
upon your actions.
Right. I got it backwards. Exactly. So I was listening with my whole heart, and I took it in and I thought, once you get to a certain point using the tools, it's as if your teachers are all the hell over the place. They're in the leaf that's falling and, a rock that you stub your toe on. It's everywhere. You're getting messages everywhere. And it was like having something reinforced that I am totally okay. I don't have to be worked out about something. And if I am, I just watch and breathe, which is something you teach. So anyway, I feel like a different person today. Whether that will last, I don't know, but I'm trying to become interdependent with everything rather than codependent on everything.
Well, and so I think you would be helped there by coming back to this very simple definition of codependent. And then if you have that very simple definition and you keep rehearsing and practicing with it, then you'll be able to decide if you stepped into that kind of a codependent thought pattern or not. But what's your definition for codependent in your current realization?
Needing something or someone to do something so I'll feel better.
Yes, you got it. And
Okay.
that's all you need to focus on.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, almost everything about all these teachings, at least in this first hour of Mindshifter Radio and the support groups and Way of Mastery, almost everything about it is inviting us to step closer and closer to that 100% responsibility for any emotion,
Yeah.
any internal experience. And so every little additional practice I can put in place, or reminders throughout my day, or practices that I can engage that help me become more immediately aware of the earliest warning signs of any kind of tightness or tension or resistance or upset, then if I just from that moment at that earliest awareness, because I'm not so triggered that I'm way up here and my mind is offline, I can just start to work with reclaiming the responsibility for what I just created.
Right. But that's also true for joyful things too, although you don't need to
Yes.
work on it. You're just glad. But I've been wondering about that. I'm not going to fuss with that because if I get into that state, why mess with it?
Well, the reason to clarify it is because then if it goes away, you don't have to think, oh, I have to chase someone else to bring it back.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right?
true.
When I recognize that I'm the one that's creating my joy as well as my upset, there's potential liberation for me at each side of the equation.
Right. I remember Jeannie once said that she thought she ought to do a worksheet because she felt so good. And I thought, what? Why? You know, leave it alone. But, she probably has a point.
Yeah, if she was thinking, I'm feeling this way because Michael did this or that, or because the mail came today, or because the cucumbers are so big or whatever, if she thinks she's feeling good
Right.
because X, Y, or Z outside of her, that's where that worksheet would be useful.
Right.
So as long as you're not trying to convince yourself that your emotional upset is caused by what someone else is doing,
Mm-hmm.
it's perfectly okay to be feeling whatever you're feeling.
Right. Mm.
We have so many people who, if and when they get in touch with this work, they start to have the mistake, the misinterpretation that they think we're telling them their emotions are bad or wrong. And I don't believe that's the message we're giving. I believe the message we're sending is that your emotions are part of your system. You
Mm-hmm.
were created with them. They're there for a reason. And your life will get better and better and better the more you're able to correctly, accurately identify what's the reason for this energy that you're experiencing as an emotion, and how can you use it to course correct? What if it's just an alarm system to tell you that you're misapplying your mind energy right now?
Mm.
So it's not bad or it's not wrong. It's not bad that you're angry. It's not bad that you're experiencing grief. It's just a matter of, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to try and make it mean?
Mm.
And remember, as the Course in Miracles tells us, I give this the moment all the meaning it has in my life.
Mm.
So in this next moment, what meaning do I want to assign to what I'm experiencing as what we call the flow of life? if I'm willing to understand that that's what's always happening and that nothing else has ever created a meaning for my life, now there's a doorway to liberty right there.
Yeah.
Have you been writing down questions for Christian?
I have. I've got a little pile of them, and I heard your message. I should find them. They're somewhere in. So yeah, I'll send them to you.
You heard my message. You felt appropriately scolded. Is that it?
Well, addressed. Let's put it that way, because
Okay.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
And
I'm.
fun.
Yeah, I'm glad it's postponed because we have a family reunion, and I would have missed that very thing, that very show.
This coming weekend.
Yeah, we're leaving early Friday morning, heading north with a car full of various family members who live south of us, and they're coming and collecting us, and then Tim and I are driving up in a van with. So the family reunion starts as soon as they pull up at the house, and we all get in. It's very exciting. We have the best. It's quirky, but it's a wonderful family. It's the Bingham side, and my side's great too, but we don't get together much. We're sort of reticent old New England types, and this is a much louder Bronxy family. So it's going to be fun. Yeah.
Excellent.
Hey, Dr. Tim, speaking of family things, aren't you turning something soon, like having a birthday?
Yeah, Thursday.
You're telling us how many times around the sun?
Am I?
Yeah. I have a number in my date book, but I'm not sure it's right.
Well, this would be 71 for me if I make it all the way to Thursday.
It looks good. Yeah, I had the wrong number. I had you as turning 66. So congratulations.
No, that doesn't happen.
No.
That's in the past.
All right. Been there, done that sort of thing.
Yeah, I have. I'm looking forward to Marcella Pixley's interview being published tomorrow,
Oh, good.
and then maybe a week from tomorrow, the Jake Yanitz Rubin interview.
Mhm.
And I've got a couple intro calls I'm working on this week, but
Good. And uh, Kristen Ryman interviewed Roger McFillin, and you had interviewed him too, right? Sometime back.
yeah. Did
I've
she
listened.
interview him recently?
Yeah, she did. It's long, and I've listened to only half. And the first half was fantastic about his crusade, really, to get people to look at medications and how they mask symptoms, and it's stuff you talk about, very articulate. But then he sort of, in my opinion, he was heading off the rails, and she looked like a deer caught in the headlights, like, whoa, how am I going to respond to this? And
So you were seeing the video of it?
I was seeing the video, and I decided right then that I didn't have time to, for various reasons, I didn't finish watching it, and I intend to, because she and I talk now and again, and I usually give her, feedback. It's usually very positive, and I'm thinking I need to watch more to see how well she handled what looked as if he was so passionate that he was looked as if he was heading into trouble, going a little bananas. And
Yeah, he can get quite hypomanic. Yeah.
okay, maybe she managed it just fine. but it was really, really good. I thought I might just send the first half of it to a couple of family members who are fussing about medications. Charlie, my grandson, has taken himself off, even though he has severe OCD anxiety. He didn't like the side effects and wants to feel his feelings and keep his responses and reactions to everything. But he's also, he needs tools, and he's not open to the tools, partly because he's got the tool of evangelical fundamentalist Christianity, and he's sure that Jesus is going to fix him up. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I know it can happen. I needed tools along with all the rest of the good stuff. So that's where he's at, and I'm in good touch with him. So anyway, carry on, Dr. Tim. I'm sort of taking up the line here.
Okay, well, yes, but that's quite all right. With Roger McFillin, his most recent podcast episode was about interviewing Evan Alexander.
Oh my goodness, really? Where's that on? Where can we find that?
Wherever you get your podcasts.
How was it?
Well, I haven't listened to it. I just saw that it was, um, the subject of his most recent release.
Well, what a combination. I mean, a real medical doctor who went totally on the other side, and then Roger, who never was a medical doctor, I don't think, but who found his way to healing without using medicines, as I understand it.
You mean Evan Alexander?
No, I know Eben was. Was Roger an MD?
No.
I don't think so, yeah.
No, Roger McFillin is a psychologist.
Right, okay.
Well, anyway, as I listen to these things and I watch people like Roger McFillin, and with all of that excitement, I forget the gentleman, the older gentleman he had interviewed before I interviewed him, and I was watching this, and at the end of it, Roger's going, and we're going to change this whole system's going to, and the older gentleman just kind of took a breath and sat back and said, well, I don't really think that's going to happen.
So other people have, yeah.
But this might happen, and then we might start a little groundswell over here, but Roger wants to just wave a magic wand, and he gets very impassioned as he's doing this, and of course he's got that. I'll call it the trap of science, and it's a trap because of this idea that I have to know, and I have to know the truth. And Roger McFillin is this brilliant young mind. And I say young because he's only been doing therapy for 20 or 30 years. And yet he's really, really, really into what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And hard, like let's get a declaration here. And of course, there's ancient wisdom that says he who says he knows doesn't know.
Right.
And I paraphrase that by putting the next half in. She who says she doesn't know, well, she's onto something. Right? And the idea there is that if I say I don't know, if I'm asking to be shown, I can always learn. I can keep growing and expanding. If I say I know, I have now shut off the potential for growth and learning. And we were talking about it last week when the story of lead vests to protect people from X-ray machines. Were you here when we were talking about that?
No, I'm surprised because I listened to all the shows. Maybe I was zoned out somewhere.
Well, it's the idea that the overarching thing I want to point out here is throughout my life, as I've been in school, I've been told this is hard science and we know this for certain and this is a
Right.
periodic table of elements and this is all the elements in the known world, or they didn't say known, in the world, etc. And then year after year, if I'm paying attention, if I'm reading the journals and books and things, I find out that another one bites the dust. Another absolute hard fact is found out to be wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm so much better off in life if I approach life and somebody asks me a question, if instead of saying, well, this and this and this, and I know this is true, then I say, well, at this stage with what I know, this is my best guess about what's going on. And so I was at the dentist, and the dentist said to her assistant, let's get an x-ray of this before we do this next piece. And the assistant went over and picked up a smaller than a bread box device off the counter, brought it over, put it up against my jaw. The dentist had me bite on something, and she said, okay, move it over here, click, click. No vests, no aprons, no people running into the other room. And I had to comment. I said, now, wait a minute. Are you telling me that that's what an x-ray device has come to? It used to be as big as a house, the x-ray machines, and people had to step in the other room and they had to have lead vests on. And my dentist said, yes, not only is that now how small the x-ray devices have gotten, but you remember all those lead vests and aprons that people used to put on? They did that because they found that the radiation would not pass through the lead vest or apron. Yes, that's great. What they didn't do is test to find out, where does it go if it doesn't go through? Does it bounce off and dissipate harmlessly in a larger space? No, she said in recent years, very recently, they discovered somebody decided to test. So what happens to all that radiation? It gets absorbed into the vest or the apron. So here's something that we think we know, we've absolutely known, it guides our practice. Absolutely solidly we know this to be true, and it's not true.
So after how many times do you have to throw out the apron?
Well, they don't use the aprons anymore because they just collect
Oh,
radiation. So
and
they
so,
probably ended up keeping the radiation closer to the patient for a longer period of time than was needed.
oh, that's creepy.
And she said, and so now if you go places, hospitals, that none of them are doing it.
Mm.
And she said it's only been a couple of years. I actually was given the choice with the oral surgery I had done a few months ago. And I thought, that's weird. But
Yeah.
the person who was giving me the choice was not as well informed about it as my dentist, who, and she filled me in on all the details. Now it's a fairly recent discovery that the lead aprons or vests absorbed the radiation rather than deflected it. So we don't know much of anything, and we are, you know, fumbling, stumbling, churning away, charging ahead, but we don't have the answers that we think we do. So anyway, that I just wanted to highlight that again. It's truly amazing to me that so many people want to, and I'll remind us of the Bertrand Russell quote that I've read a few times lately on the show, which is all about how if you're really arguing with somebody about something and you think it's that what you're arguing about is factual and that you're right, please understand that you're arguing about it means you are not as convinced in the rightness of your position as you should be. In other words, you're out over your skis and the actual hard evidence doesn't support where you're going with this conclusion. For example, if you're a mathematician and someone comes up to you and says, you know, everything you're doing is wrong because 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. Chances are really good you're not going to engage that person in an argument or try to convince them otherwise. Why? Because you know what you need to know in terms of arithmetic. People have these yelling, screaming arguments over things like philosophy and religion because these are things that can't be demonstrated categorically. So it's really just opinions that people are talking about that some people decide to argue about. So if there are any more questions or comments, I'm going to go back to the Q&A from Walk in the Physical. There's a question here that I have read before, I'm sure, but the question is, why do people live with so much fear? What is the core root of the fear? And Christian writes, fear is a response when consciousness is exposed to a constraint set or a context that has not yet fully been integrated. And he writes, and mastered. In that sense, fear is just a natural symptom of not yet being evolved. Fear is reflective of the non-native separation. In other words, the imagined dream of separation, this dream of separation. There's no actual separation. That's why he uses the phrase non-native. He writes, whereas love is reflective of the native fundamental unity. In other words, love is the stuff you're made of. Love is another word for the energy of creation, expressing in form. Love is another word for all that is. And
Okay,
so
Dr. Tim,
love is expansive and fear is contractive. Yes, Susan.
that is something that I could say I am right about. You were saying that we can't be right about anything, but isn't that true? Isn't
What?
that what you just read?
No.
Okay.
No. And we're encouraging you to question that rather than say, there it is. That's those words. That's the truth. No, the truth is this flowing, living, growing, goes way beyond these words. Christian Sundberg says this at the beginning of the book, and he says it especially before the beginning of the Q&A. He says, look, we're talking about things here that go way beyond words. Constantly, I say, at each new heartbeat, these things go way beyond words. And then there's no way to capture or hold or put the truth of life into something solid and concrete like a typewritten word or a handwritten word. It doesn't work that way. Now, it's a really good beginning point for observation as I go out into the world. It's a really good set of logical points for me to take a look at so I can keep questioning it for myself so I can be awake and aware in the moment if fear comes up or if I feel myself extending and expressing love. Does that make sense, Susan?
Yeah, it does. It seems like a really good starting point and a good bet. And if you have to feel as if you've got to face the world, it's a good stance. But maybe just after that, keep the mouth shut and stay in observing mode to see if that works.
Yeah, watch where it takes you and then keep your eyes open, because the whole point is to be awake and aware in the moment in life, all through it. He writes, fear is reflective of the non-native idea of separation, whereas love is reflective of the nature of fundamental unity. Fear occurs as consciousness, quote, buys into, close quotes, perceptions that are not in alignment with the absolute truth of what it is. And if you buy into conceptions that aren't in alignment with your truth or with the biology or neurochemistry, then it reflects that interpretation. So you start to feel the tightness or the tension or the negative emotional states. Christian writes, ego is the personal construct that happens as the individual attempts to address the fear and reclaim his or her power. And belief often arises from ego as a way for the individual to settle what is going on rather than having to face and feel the full unknown. Does that make sense? Belief arises from the ego as a way to avoid recognizing there's so much going on here I have no idea about. So to keep me from feeling and facing the full unknown, I create beliefs, right? They help me feel safe. They help me feel in control. They don't work long term, but the ego can use them as a kind of a drug or a candy to numb things out. That makes sense, Susan? Well, if you're responding, you're muted. So there you are. You're muted. So we can't hear you. So a belief
Sorry,
arises.
I'm having trouble with my buttons here. Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Sorry.
I was just trying to figure out if that was making sense. And since you were the one I've been involved in conversation with, belief arises from the ego as a way to try and convince it that it has control over things it doesn't really have control over, as a way of trying to help it feel that it knows things that it doesn't really know.
Yeah, okay, I have a question. Every time Tim and I have moved, I have found that the area we move into has what I call a feeling tone. And I can't tell whether that's just me giving some kind of subliminal, nonverbal meaning to the place, or whether the place itself has that, is informing me about itself. There's no way of knowing some things at all, because I can't find out. I can't jump into Tim Bingham's body and experience this new place that we're living and find out whether he's feeling the exact same thing, or if somebody on the street. I hardly know what I'm asking. But anyway, things can be themselves what they are, but we can't know what they are.
Yeah, and we get, little snippets of impressions.
I do know that one time there was a woman who was found to be very mentally ill, but masked, very intelligent, so she masked it very well. And she offered to help me with the Chancel Opera Company we were running years ago in New Haven. And she was really, really good and helpful. But then she took me into her apartment, and I felt as if I was, there's no describing how dark that place was in a spiritual sense. And I blamed myself. I thought, what the heck am I doing, feeling this way? But I couldn't wait to get out of there. And I won't try to describe what it was like. But then a friend of mine who had worked with her before called me up and she said, "Why are you working with her?" And I said, "Well, she's really good." And she said, "Watch out. There'll come a time where she'll turn on you. She's very troubled. Slowly back off. Use her less and less. I'm telling you, you're going to get punched." And I didn't back off fast enough. I started getting hateful, anonymous cards in the mail from I didn't know who. And yet, so I called this woman up and I said, this friend of mine, and I said, "I've been getting these cards." She said, "That's her. She's already doing it. Be careful." What was that? Of course, there's no way of knowing what that was.
Okay, except that there's a way of understanding that you have sensitivities and these energies that we experience as thought. And I mean, how many times you have to hear Dr. Michael Rice talk about a 25-year senior scientist from IBM who constructed, um, you know, who used a Delaware camera with his stuff to help take a picture of the high energy wave that leaves your mind when you think a thought, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, Michael Rice is trying to tell us that. He quotes Einstein about that. There are these energies. Now,
yeah.
Michael gets a little bit tricky with this because he says you can't feel anybody's but your own. And I understand where Michael's coming from that. He's trying to
Mm-hmm.
combat years of meeting with people who say, "I'm an empath," and then
Yeah.
they're like a bull in a china shop, not reading anything about the current
Right.
situation or
Yeah,
doing their own work.
right.
But that doesn't mean that we are completely isolated and separate from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So you felt energy.
Mm-hmm.
The way I like to talk about it is, I can see whether it's a movie or it's a documentary or it's a nature show, I can see aggression from one person to another or one animal to another,
Mm,
right?
right.
And I can name what I'm seeing. And that doesn't mean it's mine.
Right.
However, if I'm seeing what I'm calling aggression or anger, and I'm getting angry in response, that's all mine.
What if you felt like the way I felt in this woman's apartment? I don't know what it was. It was like there's an imminent sense of danger and I got to get out of here. I don't know whether that was fear or just an intellectual reading of the situation.
Right. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Right. That doesn't matter. What you want to do over time, if you're like most of us on this kind of spiritual path, is just explore it more.
Mm-hmm.
Just welcome it more. Just get curious about it more. And then do, what some would call the psychological autopsy after the fact. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this happened. I responded in this way. Do I like how the results I got or not? And so in that living my life in the moment and awake and aware and questioning, I end up with better observations and hopefully better long-term decisions.
Mm-hmm. Practical.
Yeah, I like to quote Guy Finley who says there's nothing more practical than true spirituality.
Mm, that's good. Okay. Thank you.
So you
Yeah.
felt the energies. You were getting the alarm. You were
Mm-hmm.
getting the alert.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good enough, right? That's where we all start. And hopefully we grow as we work with those with the awareness of those energies.
Mm.
And then the last thing I'll say on this point before wrapping up is the idea of how do I know if it's, this awake, aware alertness of these energies because I'm living my life with my eyes open, or it's my negative, it's my ego and it's spinning fear and it, like what this question from Christian Sundberg was talking about. Fear moves me into contraction and the negative emotions. Love just understands I'm completely safe and I'm here to extend the love. I get to choose. So hopefully this is making sense. The idea is if I'm feeling calm and centered, it's probably what I'm about to do is probably coming from intuition, inspiration, imagination, etc. My higher self. If I'm feeling frenetic in my head, if I'm feeling the kind of way that Roger McFillin was probably feeling when he was ramping up his speech so much that you could tell Kristen Ryman was reacting to it.
Mm.
In that space, probably not so centered. And you can observe that in yourself and others
Mm-hmm.
if you have that kind of sensitivity. So we're down to just a few minutes left. Somebody unmuted. Is that Celinda?
Yes, it is. A quick question in reference to what you're talking about. When you say you can be either in love or what the other expression I forgot.
Fear.
Wouldn't me fear? Okay. You could be either in love or in fear. In Susan's example of entering that home, could it also be that self-love would be that intuitive movement that your body takes, which you've mentioned for like an accident where you just get in there and do what has to be done? Couldn't that also be a self-love preservation where the body is saying, get out of here?
Yes, I imagine
like
it could.
warning sign. Yeah. So you've got like three options. You can either be love in the situation, or if it's a self-preservation thing, wouldn't love ask you to please leave?
Perhaps.
Yeah, as a possibility, a third possibility. Do not engage in this energy. Maybe later one could, who knows, but in that moment or in that experience or in that relationship, it's a real warning sign. Yeah. Just to what you say, the psychological autopsy or whatever it was you called it after the fact.
Yeah, autopsy. Go after the fact and go look at it and see, okay, what was I thinking and feeling here, and
right.
And then this happened, and what was my mind telling me about that, and how was I rationalizing this activity, and what did I think this was going to do that was good for me, which, most of the time, if it's from any kind of a negative emotional state, it'll backfire.
Or my own self-interest, and I'm not listening to myself. Yeah. I'm going to get something out of it if I continue with the relationship or in this situation. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Thank you.
You're very welcome and deserving.